How can you get a swimming pool for cheap or cheaper? Because holy heck, they are expensive. And I don't have a magic silver bullet here that's going to get you a $200,000 in-ground pool for, 29.95. But I do have some tips for you here that you genuinely could consider if you're trying to get a pool or you want to get a pool and you're trying to make the budget make sense so that you can actually do this. The first tip I'm going to tell you is that a lot of people out there shopping for gunite or concrete swimming pools or even fiberglass swimming pools, you could reduce your budget substantially for this swimming pool installation were you to consider a vinyl liner swimming pool. Now, when you say that to some people, especially if you live in an area that is dense with fiberglass or gunite pools, you might turn up your nose a little bit at the thought of a vinyl liner pool. Isn't that what they use for above ground pools? Whilst true, a vinyl liner is typically what's found in an above ground swimming pool. In ground vinyl liner pools are a thing, and they're not a rare thing either. The area that I'm located in has a very harsh winter climate, and as such, fiberglass pools and concrete pools don't really weather that well. And as a result, the industry is dominated with vinyl liner in ground pools. I would estimate 95 in-ground vinyl liner pools in my area, and the other 5 being a mix, maybe 3 concrete and 2 fiberglass. There's just very little other than vinyl liner pools, and as such, I've learned to appreciate, these things have longevity. You can have a vinyl liner pool with a 25-year-old liner in it. That's crazy long for a service life for an interior surface for any kind of swimming pool. Vinyl liners also have the unique advantage that every 7 to 10 years, longer hopefully, but when you replace the liner, you kind of just get to change the entire look of your swimming pool. You could have a very light print liner or even a white liner, and you could change to dark blue the next time you get one, and it changes the look of the backyard completely, and that's definitely something that vinyl liner pool owners talk about. They really like that aspect. Some people say vinyl liner pools, well, they're so cheap, like the won't I just poke a hole in it? And I mean, it's possible. You certainly could poke a hole in a vinyl liner in a swimming pool. A dog scratching away at the edge of it or something to that degree, that could definitely, ruin a vinyl liner or at least let's say put some holes in it. But for the most part, a vinyl liner is actually fairly robust and fairly resistant to poking holes into it. I wouldn't recommend riding your bicycle in a vinyl liner swimming pool or, chucking random metal tools into it. That sounds like it would be a bad idea, but that sounds like it would be a bad idea for any swimming pool, if you ask me. Vinyl liner pools are definitely a legitimate form of in-ground swimming pool. And if you actually haven't been considering them because you don't really consider them as good, you consider them to be inferior to a fiberglass or a concrete swimming pool. Whilst I might agree they technically probably are inferior, they're definitely still a legitimate option, and they're almost certainly a lot less money than these other types of pools. So take a look at that. That is an option. Here's another option for you. What about an on ground swimming pool? Not an above ground swimming pool, that's different. An on ground pool refers to one which is partially buried, partially above grade, partially buried below grade. It reduces on the dig costs, so it's less money to install. Commonly, it would have a vinyl liner in it, but you would landscape a pool like this with, let's say, a wooden deck around it versus hardscaping and then a concrete or paving stone or interlocking stone deck around the pool. When you have like a wood structure around it, a wooden deck, you can knock together this swimming pool, which really has the appearance of being a fully in-ground pool because of the wood deck surround that you've built around. But really, it's elevated a few feet above the surrounding grade of your backyard. These pools commonly cost half as much to install as what a comparable in-ground vinyl liner pool would cost. So there are kind of like levels to swimming pools where you might be able to afford something like you wanted an in-ground pool of any kind, you couldn't really afford one. Take a look at on-ground swimming pool packages because they can look pretty impressive. Like go through the portfolio of an experienced on-ground pool builder and they'll probably be able to show you some pretty wild pictures of the stuff they can do, and you might be impressed with how little budget they need to get that kind of work done. Okay, so you want a pool, you're trying to find a way to make it cheaper. I'll give you a great way to do it here. You need a good basic swimming pool package. Everybody who builds a pool all want waterfalls and bubblers and tanning ledges and all these features. I totally get it. They're awesome features to have, and if you got loads of money, go ahead and get them. If you don't have loads of money or you're trying to do this on a budget, you can add a lot of that stuff later. Like some of it's integrally built into the pool, and you're probably going to have to make the concession to pass on it now. But don't come to me and say you've got this tight budget and then just start describing the big waterfall that you want me to build on the side of your pool. Forget about that. Build a basic pool package. If your heart is set on that waterfall and you just can't let it go, then you can make plans for it. You can install some sonotubes in the ground to support the weight that you're going to add in the deck later. You can run some pipes underground so that you don't have to break open the deck and add them at a future point. So there's things you can do, but there's a lot of stuff in pools which can be added after the fact. Let's say you wanted a saltwater swimming pool. Some people really come to the table with their heart set on it. They want a saltwater pool, even though it's actually technically just like a bolt on peripheral device that you can add to the pool now or at any point in the future in more or less like a couple of hours. It's not really that big of a deal, but some people really get hung up on it. But what if you're out of money? The budget just doesn't allow for it. Well, the great news is you can just add it later. Add it next year or 3 years from now when some more budget avails itself to you. And there's a lot of things for swimming pools like that that you don't really need to add now. You could make a small provision for it or just make an allotment that you'll add it at some point in the future when you have more budget. So how else can you get a pool for cheap? Well, I mean, this one's not going to be for everybody, but you could build your own swimming pool, a DIY, do it yourself swimming pool. I mean, I think largely most people would agree you should be dealing with professionals when you want a swimming pool built. Like, I mean, I agree with that. A swimming pool is way more of a technical challenge than most people appreciate on the surface level. And you could pretty easily underestimate how challenging a swimming pool installation is and going under budget or just not having the skills to do the job. And you don't want to be one of those people. But there are also a lot of people out there who are very, very skilled or determined people who can and will do things like building their own swimming pool. And if you have the wherewithal to do it and the gumption and the drive, and you really want to save a lot of money installing a swimming pool, well, it's hard to beat a do-it-yourself swimming pool in that regard. The best thing is more than ever, there's information and resources available to homeowners who want to build their own pool. So if you're really determined, there are a lot of support systems out there for people like you to help get it done, more so than there has ever been traditionally speaking. All right, you want another tip for how you can get a pool for cheap? Move. I mean, that sounds so ridiculous. Just move your whole life and your everything you own into a new place. Well, I mean, the reality is if you want to get a pool for cheap, it's an option because wherever you live, let's say a new pool is going to be $150,000. If you added that pool today, just snapped your fingers and it's done, your house is probably not worth $150,000 more. In some areas, it might not be worth more at all. In some areas, pools are in high demand, and so if you add a pool, your market price will go up a little bit. But in a lot of places, it won't because there's a lot of people, maybe the majority of shoppers, don't want a swimming pool, and so you exclude them completely immediately when you have a swimming pool. So if you want a pool for cheap, it might be worthwhile to look at moving into a house that has a swimming pool already. I mean, there's a host of concerns and conversations you'd have to have about buying an existing swimming pool from, a real estate transaction, but you probably would spend a lot less money to move into a comparable to what you own now that already has a pool versus just breaking ground, digging and installing your own pool tomorrow. So there's a couple of different ways that you can approach trying to get a pool for cheap or get a pool for cheaper. I mean, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest luxury purchase that most people could ever hope to make. So Yeah, as it turns out, it's a lot of money, but maybe these tips were helpful for you. And if you did find this helpful, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.